And we are back with another episode of the Pitcher Perfect podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Kat Osterman, and I am here with our other co-host, Holly Pierce. It has been a little bit, but we are back with you guys, bringing you another episode, getting into the details, really about playing for different orgs, tournaments, that kind of stuff. A little less pitcher specific today, but nonetheless information that can benefit all of you. We took a little bit of break because life happens. You can go to Holly's Instagram and find out, but Holly went trouncing the globe for like 2 days, but she is back with us and now back to our regular scheduled programming. So Holly, do we want to just start with, I guess, talking about, obviously you and I both work for two rather big organizations nationwide. You know, Bombers have teams in, I don't even know how many states anymore. It's over 10, I believe, if not more. And Firecrackers, same thing. You guys have expanded. Probably one of the first teams really to expand outside of your home state. And yeah, we get it a lot. And we try to get players over to our orgs. Why playing big org versus small org or independent team? I am product of an independent team, but I will also say big orgs weren't a thing when I was playing. There were some that had, if you were a big org, you had 18, 16, 14, maybe a 12U team. So you maybe had one at every age, but that was big org. It wasn't multiple, and it wasn't, the way we do it now. So how about you kick us off? Obviously, you've been working with Tony and the Firecrackers for a long, long time, but kind of your take on big org versus independent team / small org.
Yeah. So I think, I work and I coach with the Firecracker organization with Tony Rico. Obviously, we are I think we were probably the first organization to franchise out there. Probably the most well-known as being like the quote-unquote biggest in the most states. I could be wrong and I should know this, but we have, I think, like over 200 something Firecracker teams. But where my perspective comes in and my experience is like you, I played for an independent team, not a big org. And I also coached with an independent team for a really long time. My dad had a team called the Jets that were around for 20 years. I coached with them for a long time. And that was really my first travel ball coaching experience. So I do understand both sides of the coin. I have, a lot of really good memories with independent team outside of an org. So I think it's important to note that my perspective here, my experience isn't coming from just trying to sell a big org. I have experience and, like I said, very warm feelings towards independent teams as well, being a product of one. This is like we said, but this is a question that we actually get a lot. We've gotten it on our YouTube question feed that people ask. Do you need to play for a big org to get recruited? Do you need to play for a big org to play competitively? And I think that this is something that's on a lot of people's minds when you're trying to navigate your daughter's journey. That is it necessary, especially if you haven't had older kids go through it or haven't gone through it yourself? Is it necessary? And what I'm going to say first and foremost is that, softball offers the opportunity to do both. You can do either one. You don't have to do one or the other. And I think that's the great thing about this sport is you don't have to join a big org if you don't want to, and you don't have to play for an independent team if you don't want to. You have the choice. I think that both roads have different perks, different challenges, but ultimately, you're going to come to a junction in the road in your softball career. And the junction can lead you whatever way you decide to go. It can lead you to the same ultimate place, playing in college. But, every road's going to offer something different. So it's kind of the road you choose to get to that point. One may be easier than the other, one may be more fitting than the other. And that's really, what I think is important to kind of get into. So you have the information out there to be able to make good, educated decisions. I think there's a lot of opinions out there about orgs, about the price tag. And so I think that knowing really what you're getting for that price tag is important to know when you're weighing your options. I hear people say a lot that, you're just paying for the name on your chest. It's not needed. And that's not accurate. And so for us personally in the Firecrackers, within our org, we have a big support staff. We have full-time employees. And why is that important? Because, softball is a business, and in order for things to run smoothly, it's not a business in the sense that everybody's just trying to profit and make money. But when things are going to be run smoothly, especially when you have a whole lot of teams, you have to have support staff in place to make sure that those things run smoothly. Our number one, probably most important employee is our admin person who's onboarding teams, doing finances, making sure that registrations go smoothly, team communication. They're really running the continuity of day-to-day operations within the organization. Anybody who has ever coached a team on your own, outside of an organization, knows that it is a huge task to take those things on your own. So that really is, I think, that an organization is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for coaches. And that's really who benefits, I think, the most is a coach joining an organization, because you already have that structure in place. On top of admin, we have a graphic designer that's doing all the logos. We have merchandise director who is getting everybody all those, the fanware, the headbands, the sweatshirts, the jackets, all that kind of stuff. Now, when you're an independent team, like I had come from previously, I was doing all of that. I was doing finances. I was ordering merch. I was doing uniforms. I was doing equipment. With Firecrackers, we have a national equipment director. We have somebody that people can go to order their helmets, to get their gloves, to get their cleats, all that kind of stuff at a discount. Because that's the other thing, especially with merch and with equipment, is that when you're within an org, you're going to get like a certain pricing, right? So it enables everybody to, rather than go pay a third party to get your merchandising done, to get the dry fits made and all that kind of stuff, we're going to do all that kind of stuff in-house. So I think that structure is one big thing that people don't necessarily realize that you're going to get when you play within an org. Now, this is stuff that's, I think, really beneficial to coaches more than anything, because otherwise that all falls onto them, right? As far as players go, you also are going to have a certain pipeline to be able to move up from 12s to 14s to 16s. And when you're already kind of in that, now you've got those resources and those relationships to be able to move through and be guided through with people that have experience. I think being around people with years and years of experience that have already basically gone through the learning curve is a big benefit now to players, people that already have those established relationships with college coaches. People that have, like I said, already done the heavy lifting in terms of figuring out and navigating how this journey works, they're going to be there to guide you. Within our org, we have weekly coaches meetings available on Zoom for all the coaches, different topics every week. We have players calls where players can jump on with Tony, get information. We've got a facility that people can come in and, we have different things offered there in terms of training. But it really is kind of like a one-stop shop, I think, being a part of a big org. Now, do all orgs run the same? No, they don't run the same. The ones that run the most smoothly and efficiently are the ones that do have those support staffs in place. The orgs that typically don't function well and maybe don't have that consistency or longevity are probably the ones that don't have all those support pieces in place. And like I said, we can talk about, it's a lot of people like to talk about that softball shouldn't be a business, but ultimately when you have people that are waking up and going into the office every day to do the admin and the finances and the graphic design and all the things that we have employees doing, it is a full-time job. Every coach knows it's too much to put on your plate to have your job and then also be doing all of these things. So now why not create a structure where teams are paying to plug into that structure and have all that stuff in place? So that to me is, I think, a big behind the scenes thing that a lot of people don't realize, that you're not really paying for the name on your chest. What you're paying to be a part of is that structure.
Yeah. Well, I think too, to your point, like the name on your chest is giving you opportunities because the people behind that name have already established themselves. So when I was stepping down from Texas State and I was working at the facility that Scott owned, the Bombers had just opened it, and I was, pitching there because I was coming back for the Olympics. And I got to see almost daily because I went in at all times of the day because I had a key I could get in. But at the same time, a lot of times it was open because, as you said, there are full-time people. And Bo Vinton and his wife, Jen, they do a lot for the Bombers. They help run the merch. They like both creating like designs, creating new products, as well as running the store. At the time, they were also I say staffing, like staffing and organizing the store because it was in the same building. So all the merch was in this room. And if somebody ordered it online, Jen went and put it together. Someone else boxed it up and out it went, right? And then you had Scott, who's obviously running it. On top of the merch, Bo is taking care of all 159, 200 something teams, right? Now McCorkle takes care of the academy, which is a select handful of like 20, 25 teams. But Bo has to make sure Minnesota Bombers and Missouri Bombers and Georgia Bombers, like that they're all still paying on time, right? And that they're getting their product and all of those things. But at the same time, Scott has done a good job of positioning the Bombers to where we do have clinics where college coaches can come work with our kids. You know, they also have, they are part of Prospect Wire, so they help run these events that our teams not only play in, and I benefit, I'm the camp director for Prospect Wire, so now I'm working to get college coaches to these camps, but because you're a Bomber, like you get opportunities to get into some of these camps and not first, but like we blast it out because it's our event that we run, right? And at the same time, it's about the personnel. You mentioned, obviously you have Tony, you plethora of other coaches that are highly knowledgeable, been experienced, and we're no different. When you sign on, if you're a pitcher and you come to the Bombers and let's just say you make an academy team, you have me, Brooke Vessel, and Alyssa Denham, 3 pitchers who 2 just finished college ball rather recently. Just finished. Alyssa's probably 4 or 5 years out. But the 3 of us rotate through our academy, watching all of our pitchers, going to our midweek orgs where you get to work with, if you're in our area, me or Brooke, or Mark is another one of ours who is highly knowledgeable. Christy Malpass, who is one of the best defensive coaches in the country, is our 14U head coach, but she runs a College Station midweek. And if you're an infielder and you're not working with Christy, you're nuts, but you get to go work with her an hour and a half, 2 hours every week for free because that's part of being a Bomber. Like you get to go to the midweek workout. There are opportunities that the name on the front gives you that you could maybe get into if you were in an independent or a smaller org. But I don't want to say it's guaranteed because you're with a bigger org, but you just have more opportunities, I feel like. And then having been a college coach for 12 years, I can say like when you're with an established org where we know the coaches, we can trust the coaches, our eyes will go to where we can trust and what we know is going to be good competition, good athletes. So when you email from a smaller independent org, you don't necessarily get overlooked, but are you prioritized unless you stood out at camp or your team is like winning major tournaments? So now everyone's like, oh, who's this team? Yes, you're not prioritized as highly because coaches are going to go to where they know they can trust the coaches to tell them who's who would want to come to our school, who wouldn't, who would be a good fit, those kind of things. And now I've watched smaller teams or independent teams. There have been probably 2 in Texas, and I say recently in the last 10, 12 years, that were their own entity and they were good and coaches were still coming to watch them. And then by the time they got to 16, 18, they merged with a bigger org because the bigger org just had the functions to help them get into all the major tournaments, to help ease the uniform costs and all that. Because obviously anytime everyone knows you buy it in bulk, you get a deal, right? So uniforms are being smaller or cheaper when you're buying 200 versus when you're buying 20. So there are people who have merged later into a bigger org simply because financially it helps the independent team. Like you said, you're not ordering just 25 uniforms. You don't have one person trying to do entry fees, do player fees, blah, 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 like all the things. But, I think people who say it shouldn't be a business, it is a business to a certain extent if you want a good product on the field. If you want your athletes to be coached by the best in the best way possible with, I don't necessarily say the nicest uniforms, but nice uniforms. I mean, I don't care. My team was in tank tops and shorts. But if you want the best for your athlete, then yes, those people, their time, their investment is part of it too. And so it is a business. I mean, no different than the Firecrackers, the Bombers are a business, but how does that org do business is what you want to look at when you're talking about joining or if you're going to make a switch. The other thing I think is big is our big orgs that I see across the country, they are some of the most competitive teams. So when you look down at the end of nationals, those are the teams that are in your final 4, 8, 10. And if you want to be the best, you should be playing against the best. So if you're smaller team or smaller org isn't consistently playing against the best, are you really bettering yourself? And I think that's, again, look in line of your goal. If your goal is not, hey, I want to go to a World Series team, I know I'm going to go for school because I want to do this special major and I'm going to go to like a D2, D3, then you don't have to go pay to play the best of the best. Go play the level of competition that you need to. But if iron sharpens iron, so you're only going to get to be your best playing against the best. And I think, I say unfortunately, but I think it's just because the bigger orgs have been able to draw good coaches. You guys have Tony and yourself and others. And obviously Mike has a plethora of good coaches that have come back to play for him. Scott's done a great job here. So has Jazz with Impact in putting great coaches together. And I think that is what draws people. And again, if coaches are going to invest in people, again, you want to pay them for their time. So you don't have to play for a big org. I think the key is you need to look at what your goals are and does who you're playing for match your goals.
Yeah.
If you're playing for somebody who has never sent somebody to the University of Florida, the University of Florida is probably not watching that team unless you go to camp and really stand out. So unless you're going to go be the draw, it might be hard for them to get you into that pipeline to get eyes on from Florida or whoever you're looking at. So I think you just have to look at what your goal is and where can you play that matches that. But I mean, go back to my college days, reference it again, is my boss used to tell our kids, I want you to play the best competition you could possibly play to be ready. So in that case, figure out, and because kids call all the time to their college coach, oh, I'm thinking about changing to this team, I'm changing that. And some will say, yes, I need you to do it. And others will say, my boss wasn't big on saying what you had to do. She just said, I need you and your family to decide what point is it that you can afford to play, like what is great for your family that you can still play the most competitive schedule possible. Like if it's not joining a big org, that's fine. But let's also not stay on just the cheapest team where if we can find something in the middle that allows you to play more competitively, but still fits the family needs.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point. If you are this standout pitcher that is in kind of an obscure region and throwing 75 miles an hour, are you going to get seen? Yeah, you will. I'm sure you'll probably get recruited. That you're not going to have a problem. But if you are the other majority of players who are kind of middle ground and playing in maybe a more obscure region, it's going to be really easy to get lost in the mix if you're not connected to the right people. And by right, I mean people with experience and with established relationships, connections, those kinds of things, playing in big tournaments. Like you said, if you want to go play for like a P4 team in college, so Women's College World Series type team, most of the top orgs are going to be where you're going to be offered the experience to play against other P4 competition. And again, this is not a all the time thing. Like it doesn't apply. Like there's always going to be those few players or those few teams that will still be able to get it done and get their kids recruited to big schools. Or if you're a big time player not playing for a big org, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen for you. Again, like I said in the beginning, like the great thing about softball is you have the choice and the opportunity to choose for yourself what you want. And there can be different roads leading to the same place, but those roads are going to look different and may look a little bit harder. Like I said, that the heavy lifting when you don't have recruiting platform in place, if you play for an independent team where maybe you don't have a recruiting coordinator or a coach that has those established relationships with coaches, and you're having to do everything on your own, it's going to be tougher. It is. That's just how it is. We have a recruiting coordinator that works with our players and makes calls for them and gets them out there. Ultimately, it does fall on the player. You have to show up and perform, but you got to get in front of the right eyes too, right? And so I think that kind of leads us to the next part about big tournaments. Are those big recruiting tournaments and big tournaments necessary? There's a big price tag that goes along with those. And I know that is big talking point within the softball community that is what are we actually paying for? And I think that delving into that is also an important topic because I think it's important for people to know what you're actually paying for so that when you go to these tournaments, you don't go there with resentment. We ultimately want to go and be able to enjoy it, especially as parents, right? You go as a parent, you want to enjoy it, not be with your head on a swivel wondering and with a calculator, well, they paid this much on the gate fee and this much on this and this much on what am I actually paying for? We're going to let you know what you're paying for so that you guys hopefully can have some peace of mind that what you're getting with the big tournaments, that you're getting a return on your investment, and, compare that to smaller tournaments. What's the difference? Why do some teams choose to play in Colorado for, I don't even know what it costs now. Like last time I checked, it was like 2,500 or something like that. Yeah, it's a lot. But what are you getting? So are we ready to segue to that?
Yeah, I think I have one last point with that I didn't mention with the big orgs, and you kind of touched on it, but like especially with the Bombers too, is we have 2 recruiting directors, coordinators who help with the overall org, and then there's 3 of us that are tasked with helping within the academy. And so I think we talk about it too, obviously we talk about, the orgs can get uniforms, they can get helmets, they can get equipment, those kind of things. They can give you opportunities to clinics and stuff. Obviously, the combines we all run, we're talking about Colorado, we run the combines before that, right? So we get college coaches just to come watch our org practice. That's it, just our org. But at the same time, it's recruiting directors, it's player development people. Myself, I'm a pitching director, and I've done some clinics. I have done some opportunity. We have org workouts. I go and we do special things with the pitchers where we talk to them and we break it down and we start to work. But we also talk about how do we set up our pitches. And I talked about the midweek. That's what I'm doing at our midweeks right now. Every time I go, we throw live. But if you're not within our org, you're not getting me sitting behind you, helping call pitches and helping explain why we're throwing what we're throwing and why you're being successful. And so I think there's just a lot. We talked about paying coaches, but there's a lot of opportunities and a lot you get when when the big org is already notified, like the notoriety of your big org is high.
Credibility.
Because those college coaches recognize it. But then when you're being recruited, your recruiting director has a bigger Rolodex, right? The Rolodex, I don't even know if people know what a Rolodex is anymore, but they have a address book of coaches that just they can call and help with. And not that little teams or I say little orgs and independent teams can't do that, but it's just not as easy. And again, it took the Cruisers had won a national championship, I believe, at like 16U or 14U or something. So people kind of knew of them. But I joined them because their second baseman was going to Texas and I wanted to go to Texas. So it's like, okay, she's going. That means the coach is going to come watch them. That's my number one school. So I'm going to join that team to make sure I get seen, right? Now then we go play and here I am flinging my little 58-mile-an-hour rise ball up there and I turn heads because of the swings and misses I'm getting. But if I had been even a little bit more average at that time, those heads may not turn. And I had an opportunity to go play in California with a bigger name, so to speak. But would that have, yes, that probably would have paid off because more people knew who that team was. But at the same time, if you can perform and get the attention to your team, it can work. It just doesn't always work that way. And so I think making sure you put yourself, if you want to go to a school and a team routinely has 1, 2, 3 people going to that school every year, make sure you're the talent level to go to that school. But then, I would want to try to get on that team. Like if that's where the pipeline is from, like, let's go, put me there. Right. So I think making sure you realize what all the benefits are, because it's not just the big tournaments, as we've talked about. It's not just, the equipment. There's a lot of people working recruiting wise and putting players in the right position that, and you mentioned it, you guys do weekly Zooms with your coaches. We Zoom with our coaches. We have winter meetings where we present to our coaches. I've done Zooms with our pitchers. Like I've had a Zoom with like 69 something pitchers on it. And, I present something, but then I let them ask questions because they have questions, right? And who do they ask? You can give them your number and your email. They're too scared to do it, right? But in a Zoom setting, they'll ask as soon as someone else asks the first question. And so those kind of opportunities are things that some other orgs don't necessarily present, or they're having to charge you and pay for in order for someone from outside to come give you that information. Because I've Zoomed with smaller organizations before, but you don't have to pay for that if you're already within the org that I'm working for, kind of thing.
Also, I think it's interesting to note that being in an org, at least with our org, it doesn't mean necessarily that your team has to be super competitive. I think that, and where that reflects on Firecrackers is maybe different than some. But we have lots of teams within our organization that don't aspire to go play, at Alliance. They know that that's just not the level that they're at, or PGF or wherever. They choose to be a part of the org for the structure and all those things in place. So I think that's something also, if you have a team and you're thinking of joining an org, you don't have to be a top team. I hear that often. It's like, they'll take anybody. They're not all competitive. Well, they don't have to all be competitive. It doesn't mean just because the talent isn't super high that they don't also deserve to be a part of something that they feel is special and useful to them. So, that's where I think, at least with our org, that I love that there's people and teams that want to be a part. And mind you, Tony, our org has never reached out to a team to come be a part of Firecrackers. It's people reaching out to us and our admin, and then they go through a vetting process. And if it all works out and things check out, they can be onboarded and then the process starts. But it really is kind of for anybody that, kind of fits the criteria of what the firecracker culture is. And it doesn't, you don't have to be going for a national championship in your respective age division to be considered to be a part of an org. If you just want to plug into a structure and have those resources, that at least with firecrackers, that really is available to a lot of people. And I think that's something else that people don't know, or people don't realize, or people have to criticize that, like, not all the firecracker teams are good. Yeah, but there's a place for everybody within the org. It's not only for the best teams. We offer things beyond just winning. Right. So
Yeah.
I think that's also kind of something to
No,
point
that's
out.
huge. And I want to touch on that too, because my stepdaughter played volleyball for a little bit. And I was blown away at how this volleyball team did their teams, or this volleyball club. And they're a fairly big club. I mean, we're here in New Braunfels. They're not as big as like the one in Austin and San Antonio, but it's fairly big. But within their club, they had colors. And I want to say it was like black, white, and gray maybe, or purple, gray and white, something like that. Anyways, the bottom color, let's say bottom for lack of, is a local team. They go to San Antonio, here if they host, and Austin. Probably don't travel more than 2 hours to go play in a tournament. That's the local club. Now that piece kind of falls off the older your kid gets, because it's harder to just play local. But then there was the next one, which was regional, and they can go to Houston and Dallas. And if you qualify, you might go to the nationals, which is out of state, but otherwise you're not going out of state. You're staying within our state. And then there was the top one that was national. And it's like, that one is going to go play all the big things. But as a family, one, you get put on it as you go through. You have to be the talent level they think can go. But even if you're like, let's say you're really good, but your family can't afford it, and your family checks, hey, we just want to stay regional, then you get put on the regional team. So like as a family, you could decide, hey, we're not ready to take the step and go cross country every other weekend, but we'll play regional. And so I thought that was really cool, because I was like, we don't hear about that a whole lot. And then within the Bombers, we kind of started doing that, not because of the volleyball thing, but we just made clear that we do have teams similar to you guys that don't plan to go to Indiana. They never plan to go to Alliance Nationals. They plan to go to Southwest Nationals. That's here in College Station. That's their national that they're aiming for. And so they play pretty much local. They play in a lot of the same tournaments we do as our top team, but they're not aiming to go to nationals. They're trying to just qualify for Southwest Nationals or Southern Championships is I think what we call it. I'm going to get in trouble not calling it the right name. But they know that's their goal, right? And so therefore then it's different, but it's a whole team that is committed to that, instead of having 4 or 5 that are like, oh, we may not go to the nationals at the end of the year. And then you get to the end and now you only have 10 people and you're like, oh, nobody can go to nationals because these 5 decided the last second that it wasn't enough for them, or that they weren't committed enough. So yeah, I mean, to your point, that within a big org, there are multiple different levels of teams for you to find your fit on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an important point for people to know and to understand.
Yeah.
Okay, so segueing
All
now
right.
into big tournaments, do you have to play in them? Do you have to play in a big tournament if you want to get recruited?
My answer is going to be, it depends on what level you want to get recruited by. If you want to be recruited from the best of the best, then yes, they're going to the big tournaments, unless it's in their backyard. So there are some small tournaments here around New Braunfels, Seguin, Austin area that Texas may send an assistant to because it's in the backyard. Like, hey, just go take a peek and see if anybody stands out. But majority of your top level teams are going to the big tournaments to get more bang for their buck. If the Bombers, the Firecrackers, Batbusters, Iowa Premier, Angels, someone's going to be mad at Impact, whoever else I left out, Aces, etc., if they're all in one place, those coaches are going to that place because they're seeing a lot of high quality athletes at one time. So they're taking a recruiting trip to go check off and highlight as many athletes on their list as possible. And I think now, if you are trying to stay local, no. Like if you're trying to stay local and to your 50-mile radius and it's a bunch of, there's like, it's D2s, D3s, JUCOs, maybe a mid-major. No, you don't have to go to Colorado to do that. Go to their camps, play in the local tournaments that you see they attend, get your correspondence on with some emails, and it can work out. But I'm going to say the best of the best coaches are going to big tournaments. They just are.
Yeah.
Because not only are more teams there, but they can watch what they know is going to be high competition. So if there's someone they're questioning, let's say we have an athlete that maybe, let's say Texas is like, I think she's good enough. I don't know. But we're playing you and Mike and Ryan all in a weekend. So that's, sorry for everyone, Firecrackers, Batbusters, and Aces all in a weekend. Okay, well, they can watch this maybe kid 3 times and she can show them, yes, I can compete against a high level, or no, I can't. And so I think that's the big thing too, is there's a lot of good teams in one place, but they also know that they're going to see your good talent play against good talent.
And yeah, and I think what sometimes people maybe don't think about, you and I, we both have experience coaching at the Division I level, right? We both been out there recruiting. We have budgets. Coaches have recruiting budgets. And does it make sense? Now, let's just think logically from a financial standpoint. Does it make sense for a coach to use a weekend and take a trip out to a smaller tournament, smaller field to see a couple kids? Or are they, like you use the term, get the most bang for their buck, to go out to a tournament where they're going to see a whole lot in a short amount of time in one centralized location at a bigger complex? It makes sense when you're on a budget and you have X amount of time. We're all trying to work with what we have financially. College coaches are the same. Not every program has like tons of income to go fly their coaches wherever. And, it's just, they're going to go on X amount of recruiting trips out to see players, and they want to see as much as they can in one place at one time, because it makes sense. It makes more sense for them. And does that mean college coaches aren't going to go to a random field on a random weekend to see a player? No, it doesn't mean they never will. I've seen it if somebody's like this truly a standout athlete. But again, when we went back when we were talking about the orgs, if you're kind of like, middle tier in an obscure region, it's really easy to get lost in the mix. If you're thinking that if you write to a coach, they're going to come out to make a trip just for you at a random field, it doesn't really make sense to them time-wise or financially. It's tough on the coaches to do that, and that's where, again, the big tournaments kind of come. They're handy. They're convenient for coaches to be able to go spend a week in Colorado and see hundreds of games and thousands of athletes at one time.
Right. Well, that, and then too, like going to nationals, obviously the best of the best qualify there, right? You're going to go see it. We run Bomber Exposure, which is pretty big in the fall down here. Back in the day, it used to be Ronald McDonald, and Ronald McDonald's still big, but not as nationally big as it used to be when we played. But coaches know, again, that they're seeing, as we said, bang for their buck. They're seeing a number of quality teams, which means they're seeing more quality athletes. And then the smaller tournaments, like you said, like it's a budget thing. So if you want to go, let's throw out, I don't know, you want to go to school. You're living in California and you want to go to school on the East Coast. Well, if you're just playing in a random small tournament in Sacramento, they're not flying from Sacramento to that small tournament to watch you play. Now, if you're going to play in Colorado, they're probably going to try to see you in Colorado. Or you guys you have a big fall tournament
on, and
yeah, so like Dawn film. So like maybe they'll come out to Dawn Battle On, but they're not coming to just the small thing, right? So that's where it's like you have to play in. If you want to get seen by the top, you do have to play in them, or you have to make multiple trips to camps. And again, that becomes more financial burden on your family as opposed to being part of an org that we talked about that goes to these big tournaments. But I think the other piece that people don't understand, and to segue a little bit, is these big tournaments do such a good job, I feel like these days, at making it a whole experience for people and for the athlete. Like, let's go Colorado specifically, like with Patriot Games, which Scott and them started. We run a college exposure camp. I am tasked and paid to go find all the coaches to come to that. And if you think that's easy, it's not, because a lot of these coaches don't always check their email. And then they ping you a week before the event and are like, hey, can I still get in? Can I still come work it? And like, luckily, maybe somebody canceled and you can put them in. But I spend most of the year emailing coaches to try to get them to be working these camps that we put on, right? And then part of that, like, because they're at the camp, obviously they're going to come watch the tournament now. So we're trying to make sure to draw them there so that way when you do pay your entry fee and you show up, there's something there for you. And I think a lot of people don't realize to put all that on, and we pay the college coaches for their time to come work. They can't work the camp for free or else that's a NCAA violation of some sort. But we pay them. And so there's a lot of moving parts within these things that I don't think a lot of people realize. But the big tournament as a whole, you get to watch good softball. Usually you're in a pretty decent place. You're at some nice fields that have been rented out and paid for and taken care of for the most part. And again, you can't guarantee any city park is absolutely pristine with no holes. I always hear complaints about like pitcher holes, and I'm like, well, you guys drag holes to China. We can't help it. Like there's only so much you can do. But there's so many people behind the scenes helping that thing run to be run as smoothly as it is. And to be honest, it's funny because I've gone out to some of the smaller tournaments around here for various different reasons. More when I was working for RBI, I would go out with our team. And you watch those go to those tournaments and watch those tournaments run, then go to the big tournament and tell me which one runs smoother. Because you would think it'd be a small tournament, but with the amount of people a big tournament has running, I feel like they actually run more efficiently.
Yeah. So I reached out for full transparency. Like I wanted to do as much research as possible for this episode because I think that this is something that's super, super relevant. So I reached out to Krista Crawford, and she is an event director for Triple Crown. She basically runs all of Colorado, fireworks and sparkler tournament. Dawn Battles on, Zoom to June, you all know Triple Crown. They do a ton of stuff. So I went straight to the source and I said, Krista, what happens behind the scenes? What kind of staff do you guys have? What does it take to make a big national event run? What are people paying for ultimately? So people know, what are you paying for? So I'm just going to read a couple things that she sent out to me. Okay. So they have full-time behind the scenes staff. It's a full company. This is an event company. So they're running these tournaments. Okay. These are people's full-time jobs. This is how they, feed their kids and pay their mortgages. This is their job. It says takes a large experienced team working year round to make these events happen. They have event directors, sales and operations. They handle planning, managing budget, logistics, relationships, media and marketing, promoting the events, managing communications. They have a graphics team designing all the materials, all the signage that you see at the tournament, digital assets. They have a college coach director, kind of what you were talking about, that specifically recruits the college coaches to attend and connect with players at the event. Helps to get the college coaches there to make it valuable for the athletes and the teams that are there. They have somebody that does accounting, managing budgets, payments, event finances, a lodging department that's coordinating hotels, contracts, negotiating, assigning staffs to hotels for tournaments. And that's umpires too. You have to think about that as well, that they've got to put lodging up for all these umpires, getting the umpires. I don't know about you guys, but in California, in the last few years, we have had a shortage of umpires. So making sure that we have enough umpires in every game. Merchandising, all the stuff that's sold, awards, like all the things for if you win the tournament, the trophies, the plaques, rings, whatever they're giving out. Tech and software developers, building and maintaining registration, scheduling, database, all the scoring systems so that the brackets are done right and all that kind of stuff. These are people's full-time job to make this happen. What do event directors actually do? She said they're like the band director, making sure every section's in sync and the final performance runs smoothly. Securing the field, securing the umpire, securing the on-site staff, juggling multiple facilities and local policies. Now you have to remember also when it comes to fields, most of these tournaments are renting the fields out. So a lot of times when there is a gate fee, for instance, at Big League Dreams, I know, Triple Crown's renting Big League Dreams out from Big League Dreams. It's a private facility. So it's the facility that's charging those gate fees most of the time. They are, again, marketing, building relationships, creating competitive schedules. Large events can take 2 to 3 months to schedule by hand so that teams are matched fairly and not just plugged into software. I know that that's a big thing, scheduling, especially when you have a lot of coaches and people that reach out and want schedules switched and don't like the field they're at and all that kind of stuff. They're dealing with all that kind of stuff. And they're also preparing for weather, especially in Colorado. In Colorado every year we get like thunderstorm, rainstorm, something, but all the staff are trained to handle delays and safety decision quickly, Where else does the money go? The fees that teams pay go right back into creating quality experience, and they reinvest heavily into improving fields and facilities. Is that perfect? No, like I said, a lot of times they're renting these fields out from cities. So, there's only so much that they can do. But I think as far as places we've played, usually the fields are pretty darn good. The mounds, not always so much. There's only so much you can do, but I think they're pretty good. They're paying college coaches travel, lodging, meals, covering umpires, staff, event operations, delivering customer service communication, providing professional media coverage and memorable experiences. They are hiring field crews within the city, arranging concessions, cleaning the bathrooms, working within the facility gate fee policies. Bottom line, I know that's a lot. I tried to run through it as quickly as possible because I know we're getting on time, but I think that hopefully that is just a little behind the scenes into really what makes these big events happen and understanding what the price tag entails. I think it's really easy for people to kind of get into tournaments and then resent the $5, $10, $20 gate fee, and you're not really seeing all the stuff that goes into making something like this happen. It's months and months of planning. It's a full-time year-round job for a lot of people. And like you said, a really good big tournament is going to draw the big coaches. So, for those things to happen, stuff costs money. Stuff costs money to make things happen. And ultimately, hopefully you guys have a little bit more understanding of what really goes into running a big event and where your money is going.
Yeah, I think the big thing that a lot of people question is gate fees, because you're already paying for your kid to be on the field, and now you're paying for mom, dad, grandma, and grandpa to all come watch them. Plus, then they're probably going to go to concessions, whatever. So it's like you're getting a lot of money from them. I know various places we go. Some places will allow you to do a gate fee, some won't. Some will say if you do a gate fee, it has to be voluntary. Like essentially you have to like basically call it a donation. Gate fees are the only thing that I go back and forth on, because if you're paying to rent the facility, then I think that should take the cake, because that should be counting what it costs to rent the fields and paying whoever is maintaining the fields. So anything
Right.
after that is essentially excess, especially when the fee to the tournament is already so big. So I get parents' complaints on that one, but I do think a lot of people don't realize what goes into these big tournaments, because again, we talk about them and people know them, but people don't realize that not everybody knows them, right? So there is, like she said, a marketing. They're putting the tournament out there to get more teams, new orgs, allow people other opportunities, to make sure coaches who whether they're new to their university, new to college coaching in general, they know. Like, you don't just start college coaching and all of a sudden know where all the good tournaments are. I mean, I didn't. And then my boss was like, hey, you need to look at this place, and it was like, and then I went to a tournament and heard people talk about other things. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to go there. Or you say, hey, I'm going this place next weekend. And some people are like, oh, we quit going there. Okay, well, let me go back and tell him that teams A, B, C, D, E aren't going there anymore. Okay, well, we are, because technically it's like regional for us. Okay, then I got it. But there's a lot that goes into it. And I don't think I knew as much that went into it until I started working with the Bombers, and I'm on some of our calls about it, because obviously I have to do the college coach piece. So I'm listening to what we do, and especially when we host Bomber Exposure here in the fall. I mean, we're using 4 or 5 different complexes in College Station and Bryan, and it's making sure that, if we are going to collect gate, we have people to do it. If we're not collecting gate, who's there to check in college coaches? Like, do we have a table that's manned? The cities there help us a lot and sometimes provide food for college coaches and whatnot. So it's like, who's going to make sure that the college coaches know there's food for them and things like that. But there's a lot that goes into it. And, every dime is paying someone for a job to make sure that tournament is running smoothly and that your athlete is given an opportunity to be on a quality field in front of coaches playing softball.
Yep.
So
That's a very good point to end
in the
on, I
end,
think.
my mic drop quote would be, find the team that meets your goals, that plays in the tournaments that meet your goals. If your dream is not to go play at a top 25 school D1, then you don't have to necessarily be on the best team in your area going to Colorado, to Indiana, to PGF. You can go be on, as we talked about, teams that play regionally, go to the area nationals or whatever it is. Just play in front of the people that you want to go play for. I think that's another question that I probably don't tell kids to ask at camps, is go to the schools. When you're at a school's camp, ask, where do you recruit? When I was at Texas State, we don't really recruit out of the state of Texas, because we can drive to Dallas, we could drive to Houston. We're right here in Central Texas. We would go to Colorado. When I was there every other year, I think they go every year now, but usually only one person. So one person's trying to cover that whole thing. And then one person would probably go to a nationals. But outside of that, they weren't going to Florida for a tournament in the fall. They're not coming to Don Babylon because they're not usually drawing that many kids out of California. So why are you going to pay all that to fly out there, stay if you're going to get no kids at the end of it? So make sure you're asking coaches that too when you guys do go to camps. And that's kind of a little bit off the topic, but ask them where they recruit and then go play in front of them. So
Yeah.
Find your team that fits your goals. Find your tournament that fits your goals.
So hopefully you guys benefit from all of this information. Again, help you make the best decisions for you. Everybody's on their own journey. So just make sure that the choices that you're making fit the journey that you want to be on ultimately and get you to the point that you want to be at. But hopefully this is some information and stuff that you didn't maybe already know or maybe just didn't even think about. So
perfect. Well, as always, we are partnered with Tie It Yourself Hair Ties. So don't forget, if you want all the colored hair ties that you could find there you go. Holly has some already. Do you want all the colored hair ties? Go to Tie It Yourself Hair Ties and type in our code,
Picture
which is
Perfect Podcast.
So Tie It Yourself Hair Ties. And other than that, this is another episode of the Picture Perfect Podcast. Holly and I are getting ready to hit the thick of fall softball. All the big tournaments getting ready to come up. Are you guys coming to Texas? Am I going to see you?
No, we're not. We're going to
I'm not
Florida, Clearwater, and we're going to Arizona.
I think we'll probably be in Clearwater at the same time. Maybe we'll do an episode from Clearwater. We'll see. Or some
You
social
going to
content.
Vegas for NFCA?
No, probably not, because I'm taking the little one to Disney after around that time.
Oh.
But we'll see you. But everyone have a great fall so far. We will be back with another episode next week. Like, subscribe, follow, share it with all your fellow softball players, pitcher friends, and we will be bringing you guys some more episodes. See you later.
Bye, guys.